Does the book of Exodus predict 3 days of darkness in the future? I believe the answer is no, and I will tell you exactly why. But first, let's read the passage. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand toward the sky so that darkness spreads over Egypt, darkness that can be felt." So Moses stretched out his hand toward the sky, and total darkness covered all Egypt for 3 days. No one could see anyone else or move about for 3 days. Yet all the Israelites had light in the places where they lived. And that was in Exodus 10:21 through 23. So the first thing that I do when I look at a passage like this is I make sure that I understand the context. The context includes the time it was written in, who it was written to, the intent of the author, historical events that were happening at that time. And it's also important to ask, what type of literature is it? Is it meant to be historical or is it meant to be prophetic? So if I just look at that passage, not bringing in any other interpretations, there's absolutely nothing to indicate that that is a prophecy for a future event. In fact, it shows that that event was fulfilled. It happened. Another interesting thing about this plague of darkness was that it was a localized event, not a global event. Darkness only covered Egypt, and the Israelites were protected. They had light where they lived. So that alone looks nothing like the 3 days of darkness prophecy that was invented by a Catholic mystic. As I've mentioned before, in the Catholic prophecy, you need a rosary, you need blessed candles, nobody can walk outside or they'll instantly die, demons are flooding the air. Again, that's all extra biblical. There is no scriptural support for that in this passage that's given so often. So the next step as a good Bible prophecy student is to go to the New Testament. And we're going to search and see if there is any verses in the New Testament that predicts 3 days of darkness. And we'll see if any of the details from the Catholic prophecy lines up with the Bible. And when we look at those passages, we want to ask ourselves the 5 W's: who, what, when, where, and why. So let's take a look. We have Matthew 24:29, which says, "Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from heaven and the powers of the heavens will be shaken." So in this passage, we see that the sun will be darkened right before the second coming, and that happens after the tribulation. So we have a time period there. And there's no mention of an amount of days that this darkness will occur. Then we have a parallel passage, which is Revelation 6:12, and this is at the 6th seal, and it says, "The sun became black as sackcloth and the moon became like blood." But again, this is a specific time period, not just a random day like people are saying with the 3 days of darkness, that it's going to come out of nowhere and nobody's going to be expecting it. This is all the way at the 6th seal. And again, there's nothing about 3 days. Next up, we have Revelation 8:12. It says, "The fourth angel blew his trumpet, and a third of the sun was struck, and a third of the moon, and a third of the stars, so that a third of their light might be darkened, and a third of the day might be kept from shining, and likewise a third of the night." So this event is part of the trumpet judgments, not just a random day. And this one looks to me to be semi-permanent. It doesn't look like something that's just going to happen for 3 days. Then we have Revelation 16:10. It says, "The fifth angel poured out his bowl on the throne of the beast, and its kingdom was plunged into darkness. People gnawed their tongues in agony." So this is all the way into the bowls of wrath. And this darkness is specifically against the beast kingdom. And there's also nothing about a 3-day time period. So it is true that there are judgments of darkness in the future, but it doesn't really look anything like the Catholic 3 days of darkness prophecy. Because in that prophecy, you can escape the darkness by just hiding in your house. And that is certainly not the case in anything we just read. No candles are going to protect you from the darkness in the book of Revelation. No demons will magically stay outside of somebody's house just because they've shut the door and closed the blinds. We have to be able to separate folklore and myth from the actual Bible. And it may not seem like a big difference now, but when people blend myth and folklore with scripture, there's deception, there's false prophecy, and it can actually be dangerous. It also discredits Christians, it discredits scripture, and it causes people to look outside of the Bible to people's videos and people's websites and people's alleged dreams and visions. And it's not that there can ever be help from those things, but we have to keep testing it by the Bible. And we definitely have to make sure we're not taking scriptures out of context to support somebody else's vision. So I hope that helps. Let me know if y'all have any questions.